Okay, so today I want to introduce the basic functionalities of Openchrom, starting from the installation process to opening simple GC and GCMS files and integrating peaks. So to get started, we want to install Openchrom. Openchrom is free, and in order to do so, you can open up a new tab and search up labocate.com. There's also going to be a link in the description, and you can click on download and some terms and conditions and download from here. Now you have two options. If you're using Windows, you have executable file or you have a zip file. I recommend using the zip file because you can put it on a flash drive and extract it on different computers that you might have, but both of them will work just fine. And you have also versions for Linux and Mac. After installation, and you should end up with a folder that looks something like this. To open Openchrom, you simply click on the application icon, double click. Here we go, we have our Openchrom software open. Okay, now that we have the software open, let's see if we can look at a GC file. This is the first thing you'll see when you open Openchrom. Let's click on data analysis. Now, if you want to open a GC file, the file format, at least for Shimadzu machines, is going to be .gcd. For GCMS, it's going to be .qgd. So let's orient ourselves real quick with the interface. On the top left is your tools. On the bottom is a bunch of graphs, and on the top left is your Data Explorer where you can open files. So let's open a GC file real quick, and I'm going to right click and click open as Shimadzu chromatograph. And so here we go, we have our graph here, and let's say we don't want to see all of this at the bottom, and we can just simply click minimize and click minimize on all of these, and don't worry, they're not gone, they're just on the sides now. And if let's say if I want to see the scan table again, you simply click scan table and it'll pop right back up. Okay, but we don't want to see the scan table. Let's close that. Let's close that as well. We're interested in the graph. Let's get rid of the file explorer. And remember, the minimized tabs are on the left and right edges, and you can hover over each little menu icon to see what each of them are. So the Project Explorer, the Data Explorer is where you can open different files. Okay. So I have the GC graph here, and you see we have a very large solvent peak. But in order to see the other peaks, we'll simply scroll up to zoom in, and we can scroll down to zoom out. So scroll up to zoom in, scroll down to zoom out. And let's say I want to manually set the chart range. We can right click and set chart range 12. Zoom in on a peak, click and hold and select the peak of interest. To go back to your previous graph, simply press Ctrl and Z at the same time to get back to where you were previously. You can also open multiple files. And you can switch between different files. Now let's say we want to integrate a few peaks. The way Openchrom integrates peaks is that first you have to identify which peak you want to integrate, and then you go ahead and integrate. So to start, we go up to this icon here, which is the peaks icon, select a drop down, and we're going to select show peak detector. And let's maximize the peak detector. So we're going to minimize this and minimize this. I have a peak detector here. And we're going to scroll up to zoom in again. And let's say I'm interested in integrating this peak and this peak. So to start, I'm going to click, hold, and select this peak to zoom in. I'm going to select the modulus tool by clicking, and then I'm going to double click and select the range. So when I integrate, it's going to integrate from here to here, and then add the manually detected peak. I can add an additional peak. So let's say I'm interested in this peak here. Click the modulus, double click, select the range, and add the peak. Okay, now we have our peaks selected. Let's go back to our, so this is what we call the shared area tab. And the shared area tab has the original GC graph that we started out with, but notice now we have an arrow indicating where we've selected our peaks. And let's go back to the peaks tool, and now we're going to click the drop down and click show peak list. And so now we see that we have our two peaks that we've manually added earlier here. But we don't have the areas yet. In order to obtain the areas, go back to your graph of your GC, right click anywhere along the graph, select the peak integrator and the peak integrator trapezoid. And we're just going to click finish. Okay, let's go back to our peak list, and now we have the areas. And so you can simply, to export this to an Excel file, you can right click and select all, and you can copy to clipboard, and you have the Excel file already open up here. You can paste, and now you have the areas ready to go. Let's say we want to open a GCMS file. They're going to be in the QGD file format. We're going to right click and open as a Shimadzu chromatogram. Again, we can scroll to zoom in and zoom out. Let's say I'm interested in the mass spec at this peak here. I'm going to double click to select it. And then I'm going to go up to the scans tool, select the drop down, and show scan chart. And so let's minimize this. And so now we have the mass spec at this time here. Again, we can set the chart range, something a little more reasonable. You can also zoom in and zoom out by scrolling. If you want more quantitative analysis, you can go back to the drop down and show scan table. So here's our scan table. Now you have the mass charge ratios, you have the intensity in terms of counts and percent, and you can simply click on the table in order to order them in the way that you would like. To Excel, or to export the scan table to Excel, we're going to right click and we're going to select all, export table selection, copy to clipboard, and go to Excel, and we're going to paste it. And here we go. You have the data.